Hello, welcome back to another episode of FNL Fridays. Today we are here with my friend Jade Rocca, and I'm super excited to talk with Jade because she has a really inspiring story to share with us today that we're going to talk about. So first, welcome Jade. Thank you so much for being here.
Having me. I'm really excited.
Me too. So just some background for, pretty much nobody really knows how we know each other. So Jade and I met at a mutual friend's event. I don't remember when that was. That must have been just a couple months ago, right?
Maybe like early spring.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So we met each other and I was just like instantly attracted to like your energy and just like who you were. And I was like, I got to hang out with this girl again because she seems really cool. And I think at the time you had like just launched your business, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like just getting off the floor.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure. So I own Mindful Magnolia, which is a full service floral design company here in San Diego. We service all over the county as well as Baja California. We kind of specialize mostly in weddings, personal deliveries, and we do a lot of corporate wellness workshops as well. I recently joined a networking group called BNI. I'm sure some of your followers might be familiar with it.
Yeah.
Called Business Networking International. Highly recommend it. I've been a member for about 3 months and it's completely like transformed my business already. So yeah, we did a bit of a educational piece on the benefits of fresh florals, kind of promoting the corporate wellness packages to that target market.
Okay, so we know that you're in florals now, and just a side note that you are doing my flowers for my wedding, and I'm super excited. Just like when we sat down and went over it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to look so good.
I just did your like file today with like your vision board and everything.
Oh, so I haven't even seen that yet. So I'm super excited to see that. But that was, I mean, like I said, this is something that's pretty new. So I wanted to share with our viewers kind of what got you started with this, because I mean, in the last, year or so, you've had like a huge change from where you were. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about your background and what really got you into florals?
Yeah, October 1st is coming up on the business's first birthday. Little baby's grown up. And what led me to flowers was history with addiction, actually. I had found flowers in one of the darkest times in my life. I was in treatment, healing from an abusive relationship. I was actually engaged a couple years ago and wasn't the right fit, we'll say. Didn't work out very well, but that was an extremely traumatic breakup for me. There was substance abuse and physical violence involved in that, and leaving that relationship really put me on a deep bender for that year. And I'd always been a party girl before, but as soon as I started using hard drugs for pain, shit hit the fan and couldn't take it anymore. Fast forward a year and I decided to seek help and get clean. And I was in an outpatient program for 11 months, a women's program, where I was kind of sharing experiences with a lot of women that were dealing with kind of similar issues, healing from abuse, healing from trauma, and obviously getting clean off drugs. And in that time, I would buy myself a bouquet of flowers every week. And, they quickly became like a very prominent symbol for me of strength, beauty, and growth. They just symbolized that to me so vividly, so clearly, and they were such a light at the end of the tunnel. And it just kind of like weaved itself in, in the business today, I use the visualization blooming forward, and I use a kind of a meditation visualization of a single bloom. And what that symbolizes is that we all grow out of some sort of shit, out of mud, out of a mess. And we have to nourish and strengthen our foundations and our stems so that we can stand up and blossom. And that's what flowers started to symbolize for me. And I was on disability for that 11 months because I was in a full-time intensive program. So I kind of had, wiggle room there to discover myself and see what I really wanted to do next. And then it just became so clear to take the leap and do what I was passionate about. And here we are.
I know. I'm so happy for you, because I know that you're growing and you're doing well. And I mean, you're so talented. Like, everything that I see, I haven't even I've seen some of your stuff in person, but even at my own wedding, I haven't seen that stuff yet. But it's just like, I can tell you're just so good at what you do. And I just love that it seems like one of those things that was almost like unexpected. Like, you didn't really have any, you weren't like, I'm going to be a florist.
That I would be a freaking florist,
Yeah.
Bartending and marketing background, and that's about it, but it's really I've come to realize with everything that's happened and exactly how everything happened, it was all for a reason. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have these, butterflies in your stomach as a kid or as a teenager, that flame, like, what do I want to do? I have so much passion. I have nowhere to direct it. I have nowhere to channel all this energy and drive to. What am I meant to do with my life? And then, shit hit the fan and you go through hard, dark times and things get clear, especially in sobriety. I feel like I was really supposed to have that journey exactly the way I did so that I could have that experience and share that with others. And now, that's kind of the purpose and the goal of the company. I really want to empower people through this story and empower people through floral design.
And I think that that's, one of the reasons I am so excited for you to share your story is because, especially, and you and I are not old by any means, but I think especially if it's like, if you don't have it figured out, like right straight out of college, or, you know what I mean? By the time you're 25, it's like very overwhelming. And I think society is definitely changing, where it's like people are changing careers. We're not quite as tied into this idea of this 40 years in this one job. But at the same time, it can be really, really scary to feel like for whatever reason you have to start over. Like, maybe it's, your marriage doesn't work out, or maybe it's just that you're super unhappy in your job, or something like your example where you just had a really low point in your life and with substance abuse and with this bad relationship. But either way, you're able to just literally start from the bottom, and it's not even been a year. And I'm just so impressed with how well you've done. And you're working hard, you're working for it for sure. But I think it's encouraging to anybody who might be going through a hard time and feeling overwhelmed with what's next, or can I do this?
Yeah. And on that note, I think that I'm so eternally grateful for my time in sobriety and my time in that program, because it teaches you the tools you need to allow yourself to feel the emotions that you're feeling. So, when we're angry, when we're stressed, when we're sad, it's okay to feel that. You're supposed to feel that. You're human. You're reacting to something. Right. You need to allow that emotion and that energy to flow through you. Receive it, because the more resistant you are, the more harder it gets and overwhelming it gets. And being able to have that flip in perception and believing in yourself, whatever that may be. That could be in hard times, that could be in new business ventures, that could be in a new relationship, or, getting out there in female entrepreneurship groups, or whatever it may be. Allowing yourself to feel the emotions and having the faith and belief in yourself to do it are all you really need. It's just the two foundations,
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Nice and simple.
Really nurturing that. And, again, going back to this visualization of a stem, how do you think that grew? How do you think it's standing on its own? It's beautiful at the top, right? But there's a lot that took it to get there.
Right.
And to keep it there.
Right. So true. So what would you say, if you could summarize, or, in one or two sentences, just say what the biggest thing that becoming sober and going through that experience taught you, maybe just taught you about life or about yourself? Is there anything that jumps out at you of oh my gosh, I learned so much in whatever way?
I would say two big things would be patience and self-worth. Patience, it taught me to be patient and gave me the self-discipline to understand that big goals don't happen overnight. They're every little day wins. Every day is a win for a big goal. And as long as you're going forward or staying at the same level, not regressing, you're good.
Right.
Patience for yourself. You know, you have to have patience, especially with big goals like that. I mean, getting sober was by far the hardest thing I've ever done or probably will do in my whole flipping life.
I bet.
But what it gave me was so much more than I could ever fathom. You know, it really made me realize, like, whatever I want to do in this world, it's freaking possible. I just have to keep my head in the game and keep everything right with myself, allow myself to feel whatever I'm feeling. And the other big point, I think, is self-worth. You know, like, I, by the grace of God or whatever higher powers up there, was able to leave that relationship. You know, I, thank goodness, didn't marry this person and left, you know, kind of like the worst physical part of the relationship. And I, to this day, you know, what if I didn't leave?
Yeah.
But something in the back of my mind was like, you're worth more than this, Jade. Like, you're worth it. Leave this person, leave this toxicity. And I think that's really helped translate into the business, knowing that worth, like, whatever you want to do, you're totally worthy of it. You have to demand your seat at the big table sometimes, you know? You have to show up and be like, I'm here to stay.
Yeah, I struggle with that too. I think a lot of people do, but especially women. And not to say that it's like, everybody's different, but I don't think it's always this idea of like, oh, I'm not worthy of anything. Like, I'm just this like piece of crap. Like, I don't think it looks like that for a lot of us. I think it just looks like we reach, but only to like a safe place, or like we reach below. Yeah. It's like, it's like, go for something higher and see what happens, you know? Like,
I think it's really difficult in our time right now because we're constantly comparing ourselves online.
Yeah.
Every day, all day, we're on fucking Instagram, just comparing ourselves. And I struggle with that, you know, especially brand new to a brand new industry. I've never been in this industry before. I've never done floral design before, you know. I kind of struggle with that too sometimes. But again, that struggle, you're allowed to feel that. Let yourself process that. But what are you going to do about it? You know, what's the next step?
I feel like I'm getting like a business pep talk right now. I'm like, all right, as soon as we're done talking, I'm like, do some stuff.
Right. You know, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan up. Why not? What do you have to lose? What hell do you have to lose other than being in the exact same position you were 5 minutes ago?
It's true. This is true. And I love that you're doing that. You're living by example. And I'm wondering, you know, business wise, so you've learned a lot from, you know, your sobriety and going through that program. As for your business, what is that teaching you? Like, being an entrepreneur in a field that you had like no formal training in, you kind of just like learned as you went. And I'm curious, like, what are you learning along the way business wise, or is it the same thing?
So I think it's the two like same things I'll stick with, but they just translate in a different way, especially with entrepreneurship and business. So obviously patience and self-worth, right? Like, especially during my time in sobriety in that program, of course, I learned so much about the biology of an addict, the brain of an addict, how it functions, how it works. And it really makes sense that I ended up becoming an entrepreneur, because in that realm of things, addicts, when they're struggling, we don't like the balance part of the pendulum. We need to live in the extremes. So, you know, thank goodness now I have the positive extreme to hyper focus my energy on. But with that being said, of course, I put too much pressure on myself, because that means I want everything tomorrow. I want 3 flower shops tomorrow. I want, you know, 150 weddings this year. I want a team of 20. I want everything tomorrow. But I have to go back to the core value of patience and the self-discipline factor. And it's really helped me look at it long term. Because when I reflect and I look back on the day I went to rehab, the day I got in there, not knowing what the hell I was doing, not knowing what it was going to look like, how to be sober, how to be a human off drugs, I had no idea what I was doing. But it was the daily wins. It was the daily tasks. It was, you know, putting in the work, being open and receptive to learning how to do this, to learn how to be this sober human being, or this entrepreneur in business. You don't learn everything overnight, you know,
For
and
sure.
I think that's life in general. We as humans learn the most from experience. So, you know, yes, I'm very grateful that the business has reached the level that it's reached so far, but there's so
Mhm.
much more to learn and grow and do. And I think just being patient and, you know, receptive and being gentle on myself, like we're all so tough on ourselves all the time, you know,
For
and
sure.
I think it's really important to reflect at times and be like, you know what, we're doing okay. Let's take a breathe.
Yep, you're right. We're all hard on ourselves, like you said. And it's like, it's so easy to be, especially when you're self-employed, because it's like, there's nobody patting you on the back.
And there's like, you know, the clocks, there's no on and off, you know, you're always
Yeah.
doing something. It's your baby and it's your world. You want to always do something to feed it, to nourish it, to love it.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, when we're talking about self-care and self-worth, you know, you have to nourish yourself too. You need off days. You need, you know, the patience with yourself to understand, okay, maybe I'm not going to get my, you know, laundry list of things to do for the business today done, but I'll get the most critical, the top 5 on my list. And then I'm going to put my feet up and binge watch Netflix and
Yep.
have a bowl of popcorn and call it a flipping day.
That's me.
You know what I mean? I think
Oh my gosh.
there's a balance. There's a balance that you have to find. You know, and then the next day hit the gym and, you know, be a bad bitch and get your shit done. Like that's all fine and dandy, but I think it's really, really, really important for us to take a step back, appreciate where we came from, appreciate where we are, and appreciate where we're going and visualize that. Because when you think about the light at the end of the tunnel, whatever that may be, you can get there when you visualize it. When you see an ending or an outcome or a long-term goal, you know, you want to reach it. You want to grab it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like those everyday practices, those everyday wins, you know. And I mean, there's no way in hell that I could have done any of this being the Jade that I was before sobriety.
For sure.
You know, because I didn't know the self-discipline aspect. I didn't know how to look at a goal long term and chip at it with little wins. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know that was possible.
It's hard though. I mean, breaking stuff down and being patient, like you said, you know, and I'm curious how you know, this new life that you're living, I'm curious what that looks like for you. Like, what is the biggest changes that you've made, or like your day to day on average? Like, what does that look like as the new Jade?
Well, I think the biggest change is spiritual practice. You know, like I have to be really adamant about what I do for my morning regimen, what I do for my evening regimen, going back to this self-care. I think that's the most pivotal point, you know, and perception and what you're really receiving as far as energy. I think the biggest thing for me is the exchange of energy, how I speak to myself, how I treat others, you know, what's my perspective on the world. If I'm constantly negative, nothing good is going to come my way.
Yeah, that's for sure true.
So different perception and perspective, you know, I'm really happy that I have the ability to take a negative and make it work for me, not against me.
Right.
And I think that's what's been like monumental in the growth of not only my business, but me as an individual. Because shit's going to come up. Nothing's going to be perfect the first time. You're going to get stressed. You're going to have conflict, whether that be with yourself or with other people. You know, and what are you going to do about that? Are you going to sit and get pissed off and get angry and get woe is me? Or are you going to meditate and flip it into a positive, have faith that you're on the right path, and, you know, allow the universe to give you signs and whatever the next steps for you are? As far as like my health and what the biggest changes I've seen in myself, you know, so a perfect example. I have a business coach I'm working with. His name is Luke Jensen. He owns Victory Mindset. I mean, I highly recommend him. He's amazing. He's changed my life. But something really resonated with me in his program. There's 2 versions of ourselves, right? We always see ourselves as these 2 different people. There's like he calls himself like Little Luke or Big Sexy, and you have to like nickname yourself. What's the little version of yourself when you're being too hard on yourself, or you're procrastinating or being lazy? You know when you're not like operating at optimal speed, right? And then there's the flip side. Then there's like the fucking Beyonce, the Bill Gates, like your biggest, you know, hero. Like, what fills you up? You know, when you're having those days walking down the street looking fine as hell, thinking you're Beyonce, you're optimizing yourself at that moment.
Yes.
And I've taken that example and I use that. Mine are my little version is Annie Walker, the blonde in Bridesmaids.
Yes.
So like, lost her business and lets men walk all over her.
Mm-hmm.
And then my sexy is Cleopatra. So when I'm like trying to uplift myself or get through something, I'm like, okay, what do I want to be? Do I want to be Annie Walker? Do I want to be fucking Cleopatra?
Ooh, I need to do that.
I think it really helps, remind you and kind of like click in your head. Like, you have a choice here.
Yeah.
It's on your mind. You have a choice of what you want to be that day, or how you want to respond to people that day, how you want to act, how you want to speak to people, or you speak to yourself.
Right.
You know,
such an important thing, just on like how we take on life, like you said, whether it's internally, the way we're talking to ourselves, or how we're responding to stuff. Because I know for me, like when I'm having my bad days and I'm overwhelmed and, you know, I feel like, oh, I'm not getting enough work done, or I didn't do something well. It's like, I snap at my dogs. I snap at my fiance.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and then you're like, oh my God, I'm being an asshole. Like, it doesn't feel good.
You know, of course, I totally relate to that, because it's like the like bubble coming up, like that rage bubble. You're just like, fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's, it's not easy either. It's a practice. It's a daily practice.
For sure.
Am I perfect at it? But it has really, really helped me. Something that has really, really helped me as well is writing my goals down, writing my fears down, things on paper. And your journal, girl, your FNL journal has literally made that possible for me.
Wow.
Amazing with keeping everything in my life on check. Like,
thank you.
Nutrition, what I'm putting in my body, my lifestyle, what am I doing to nourish and love myself and move my blood? What are my fitness goals? What are my weekly goals? And I even put a lot of business stuff in there. You prioritize everything. You mapped it out so beautifully.
Thank you.
On the Wander pages. I read all the quotes. Like, this is an amazing product, and I'm so proud of you and so grateful that it's been introduced into my life. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you so much. And that means so much to me. That's like, thank you. That's like, hearing you say that makes me so happy, because that's like exactly what I was hoping it would do for women. So I'm so glad.
But this is what we need. This is accountability. This is the time that we take for ourselves in the morning and at night. You have to like allocate that time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this journal just maps it out so beautifully, and it really works to keep us all on track.
Thank you. I'm actually using mine. I waited until we got back from our vacation, but I'm using mine now, and I'm like, damn, this is thorough. I'm like, good job, Teresa.
Yes, you did.
There's a lot in there, but I'm really happy it's helping you. So what's like your hopes for the future then? Because obviously you're like on this like upward trajectory for sure. So whether it's just personally or business wise or just like grand plans, where do you see your life going?
Well, in my personal life, I don't know, no idea.
It's a loaded question, I know.
I want to help other women, men and women that are in those dark times, because I know what that feels like. I've been there. I've been in the nasty, dark crevices of depression and addiction, and it is not a fucking fun place to be. And I really want people to know that they're not alone there, that people deal with, we all have something like this that we can relate to, and we can all help each other through this pain. and that visualization that I use with the stem is actually the tagline of the business. I call it Blooming Forward.
Right.
So what I envision for that kind of sub-brand of the business is a community. I know how much community helped me in my dark time, and I would really love to bring Blooming Forward to fruition as a part of my community where everybody's welcome. It doesn't need to be sobriety based. But I would love to have a space where people could come be vulnerable on a weekly basis and vent about their shit and empower each other and uplift each other and know that they're not alone.
Well, I'm sure that you're going to make that happen. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah. I'm thinking early 2020, but yeah, fine tuning it. It's coming. Blooming Forward is coming for sure. And then with the business, again, I'm just trying to have patience. Like it's moving and grooving. We're kicking ass in the last wing of wedding season. I'm popping up retail in October, which is really exciting. It's going to be in University Heights at a Colombian coffee roaster called Japao Coffee. So
That's
come
amazing.
October, we'll have a full-time STEM bar and retail space there.
Oh my gosh, congrats. That's exciting.
Yeah. So, that's the next step, and then onward and upward for there. Ideally down the road, probably next year at some point, I'd like to have Mindful Magnolia have a shop. I'd want it to have studio, have community. I'd want, somewhere where I could have a floral studio, but also somewhere to host these Blooming Forward meetings for sure.
That's so exciting. Well, like I said, I have no doubt that that's going to happen for you. And it sounds like you already know, like just practicing the patience and eye on the prize, little steps forward. And of course, we want to make sure everybody can support you and everybody knows about you. So why don't you tell us the best way, especially for people here in San Diego, the best way that they can get in touch with you?
I think the best way to reach out would be via Instagram or my website, especially if anybody wants to take a look at the design and my style and the portfolio online. The Instagram is
really good.
Mindful Magnolia. And the website is themindfulmagnolia.com, www.themindfulmagnolia.com. I think those are the two best ways to get in touch.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, because I know, that is personal, and, I appreciate you opening up, but I also know that like a lot of people, I'm sure, can relate to that in many different ways. So I really hope that it can help them as well. And I look forward to how your business goes and seeing it grow. And then hopefully we'll have you back on here to touch base and see how it's been going.
For sure. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This is so much fun.
Thanks for watching my interview with Jade Rocca of the Mindful Magnolia here in San Diego. And don't forget that the first Friday of every month, I'm going to have an interview with an awesome woman in fitness, nutrition, or lifestyle. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the updates.